Hi, this is Leora with GardensAll.com here with Coleman Alderson, GardensAll.com. This is in the GardensAll garden, and we're working on compost bins today, showing you basically the 3-bin setup that we have through our home-built compost bin. Coleman's going to talk us through that.
Well, good afternoon, good day. It's 93 degrees out here, and we're having a great time moving the compost around. People might wonder what's going on with this 3 compost bin system, and originally it came to me as a result of years ago, way long ago, James Underwood Crockett showed on his TV program out of WGBH Boston how to build what was referred to as the Cadillac of compost bins. And it's a 3-bin system. We put the fresh stuff in the first bin here and build it up layer upon layer. We have to be careful about watering it in, adding some sort of material, green material, alternating with roughage basically, and keeping it well watered, and occasionally putting in some form of fertilizer. We put in organic fertilizer like manure and fish emulsion, that sort of thing. So you work on this first bin, and it has to depend on the weather. In the summer it goes pretty quickly, in the winter not so quick, but it begins to break down, and as it breaks down you get to a certain point where down below you see it's pretty black, and things are happening down here that it shows it's ready to flip over into this second bin.
And Coleman, I'll get a close-up in a little while, but right now on the iPad, I'll just take the distant shot.
Okay, well here's an example of what's in the second bin. Stuff hasn't quite broken down completely, and of course the fresher stuff that was on top here is now on the bottom down there. And it really, after it composts down, it loses volume. So when you flip it over here, it starts to sink down. And then once this is given enough time to where you can see it's fairly consistent, this is practically ready to flip right now. Then you turn it over into this third bin, and this is the bin where you store your compost. This is finished compost. So you have a lot of 3 by 3 by 3, that's 27 cubic feet of space to store your compost.
But what's with the potato plants?
Oh gosh, well, we tried to salvage. We were playing a potato tower, and I was picky about what went in the potato tower, so I took the guys that didn't look like they were going to make it, and rather than toss them away, I just put them in a little corner here. And lo and behold, they started sprouting. So we haven't really quite decided. We've accorded them a corner over here, and we're still dumping in this area, but we'll have to figure out something to do. Either let them grow on and see what's at the end of the season and work around them, or figure out a way of transplanting them. But I mean, this is growing in straight compost, so I'm sure they're pretty happy about growing in this spot.
So do you keep adding from the first to the second until the second is full? And how does that work out rotation-wise?
Yeah, good question. This is all just one fell swoop. You decide, well, okay, it's ready. And obviously the first thing you're going to do is to turn this into here, add to your compost, finished compost, leaving this empty, and then you'll turn this into here. Then you'll start with fresh composting in this bin. And as you turn, obviously as you turning this over, it also avoids the what they call anaerobic digestion, where the oxygen is cut off, it's too wet, or the air isn't getting to it. It actually aerates as you turn, so that can fix some problems that people had in their initial 1-bin compost, where it starts to smell really bad. And it really, by the time it gets into here, it really shouldn't smell bad at all.
Okay, so now for those who have the tumbler compost bins, just the one system, they only have enough space or time for one system, that could be where the tumbler comes in, right? It keeps it tumbling to keep it aerated enough that it continue the breakdown process.
It does work, but I for the life of me, I cannot figure out if you keep putting in kitchen scraps in that tumbler, and you keep tumbling it, you're bound to be pulling out some fresher kitchen scraps as you pull it out. And I've seen the ones where you load in the top and it has a little trap door at the bottom, and that's kind of what we'd have here. Chances are this down here is fairly well broken down.
Yeah.
But the tumblers are always a big question mark for me. I've never quite seen how they work. Maybe some folks have, but I haven't seen how they work.
Okay, in terms of keeping enough ready compost separate from that's breaking down.
Mixing it up, and unless there's some way of draining it out of the bottom or just getting the juice, the composted juice from it, then hard for me to understand it. Sorry, that's just me.
Okay, so the one units that break down where you load in the top and you pull out from the bottom can be good. They can be a little tedious to get good compost out of the bottom. So how about this one? Now, isn't it kind of labor intensive to have to shovel it from one end to the other? Those front boards come off, right?
They do, and that, I think this is a pretty cool system that they slide. They're in a groove, and it does take time to build. It takes some labor initially. Took us most of the day. There are lots of plans out there on the system, but as far as labor goes, you only do this, on a very periodic basis, so that
because it's so big.
Sorry?
Because it's so big, you can pile it.
Because it's so big, and it does, you'll spend half an hour, 40 minutes turning maybe. I don't know exactly. But,
how often about?
Well, like I said earlier, it depends on the weather. Like during the warmer season, this will probably be ready to turn because this looks like it's so ready to go into the other bin over here. And then you just turn it over and start again. It takes a little while, but it's worth it. It's like anything in life. You get out of your compost what you put into it, right?
Okay, so this is the one that's you've added. What have you added? You've added straw.
Straw, and there's some garden scraps mixed in. Underneath there's another layer of compost. You can see it's moist down in there. We don't want it to get too moist or it'll go anaerobic. But we have food scraps and straw, and then dirt, basically.
And when it goes anaerobic, means absence of oxygen, so it stops breaking down and just starts molding.
Yeah, it starts to smell, and you start getting organisms in there you really don't want to have in your garden.
Speaking of organisms, where are the worms? Where are the worms?
Well, it's hot. The worms are probably somewhere down in there working away. They're down here in the bottom working away. We might turn up some. I kind of doubt it because it's gotten so hot. They like being in the cool, moist.
And did you add any worms?
Oh no, that's a natural. I'm seeing some sow bugs here and there, but no worms so far.
Okay, but you could add worms to expedite the process.
You could do a little vermiculture in there. I just saw one go down.
Yeah, they're trying to get. Yeah.
They do not like the heat.
The heat or the light, and we've got both right here.
Exactly.
And this is the this is the rich compost matter.
Yeah, it's ready to go in the garden. And you'll notice we still have bits of eggshells and all that. And ideally you'd want to break those up, but we don't bother with breaking up. And, by the way, the more things you can put in your compost, there are various microbes that are attracted to various forms of matter. So the more different types of things, leaves and eggshells and coffee grounds and all that, the more you can put into your compost, the more of these variety of microbes you have, and the better that is for your whole, microbe panorama.
Now, and varied but not animal proteins usually. Like the eggs are fine, the eggshells rather are fine, but no meats, correct?
Should not put meats, even the eggs. You run a little chance of attracting raccoons and whatnot, but we haven't had much problem. We have a little water scarecrow that probably keeps them away, but for sure you don't want to put meats in there. They tend to go really rancid and stink and
attract maggots.
Yeah, it's just not a good deal. So we're at it here, and this will provide, one of the things of it is there's ample size. By the time we dump this in here, we'll have, about half a bin full, which will be about 13 cubic feet.
By the time you dump the middle one?
By the time we turn this into here, it'll be about half filled up.
Okay.
And that's a lot of compost to lay out on our plants as we go along through the season. And then as winter comes along, things slow down, and we'll be a little bit more timely in turning this. Always make sure if you do any sort of open compost in a bin, whether it's a single bin or this sort of system, to make it like a dish in the middle, so water always comes down toward the center and it doesn't wash off the sides. You want to make sure that it's in a dish or bowl shape like that.
And the only thing about that is that would it not cause the interior to get too wet?
No, you just have to monitor. And like I say, if it does get too wet, you always have the option of being able to flip it back into your second bin. And our experience is that corrects the anaerobic situation. If it tends to go anaerobic, then and then of course you don't water. You put a cover over the top of some sort and keep it from getting too wet.
Okay, sounds great.
Well, I appreciate your visiting,
okay.
And look forward to hearing what other folks are doing and whether they've tried this 3-bin method or not, how they like it. We certainly like it. It's our third rendition of the Cadillac system. We like it so well. So look forward to hearing from folks, writing on the comment section, and also up on our Facebook site.
Cool. Yep. One more question. If we did add worms to help speed up the process, or because for some reason we were shy on them or seemed low on them, would you add it to the second compost? Second bin, or the first one, or both?
Well, that's a good question. I would experiment with both because they do like having basic raw food matter. You know, that's something that they put in the worm composters that you see. So I would experiment with both. And of course the system, if they didn't like it over here, they could always migrate over here through the, this is just wire. So they could always migrate.
If someone didn't have the wherewithal, like the saws, the wood, the space, or whatever, to make their own wood Cadillac version, and they didn't want to buy one of the existing ones like we've seen on Amazon, they can be pricey. But so can the plastic or whatever bins. I was wondering, could you work with like 3 garbage cans in a row and kind of create the same thing, or would it be too non-porous? I guess you could punch holes in it.
Yeah,
drill holes in it.
It's good to get the aeration. That's why we separate the boards. That's why we have the wire. It's good to have that aeration. Take a lot of holes that you have to put in, or find some way of rotating those trash cans. But as you were talking, what came to mind was this the prospect of using pallets.
Yeah.
And you could certainly get pallets to work, and in the front you could just have a panel, made of wire on a frame, and it would work. This is just,
that's right.
We had the tools and the material.
Yeah, that's right. We've seen, now that you mention that, we've seen some of the Gardens All community Facebook folks have created their bins out of pallets. We'll see if we can add some of those photos to this article.
Yeah, it's more the 3-bin design. It's the design itself, and how you figure it out with the materials and all is, if you can get to that 3-part design,
right.
I think that's the main deal.
3 stages.
Yeah.
Simple. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see y'all later.